All right, everybody. So welcome to Yes Have Some Podcast. We're just going to get into it. No long intros tonight. Joining us, writer, director of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and I don't know, I think friend of the podcast at this point. We say
let's
it
see how
everybody.
this conversation goes.
Yeah, let's see.
Yes, have some. Yes, have some.
Gil Kenan. Gil, thanks for joining us, man.
Oh, it's such a joy. I'm really happy to have this conversation. And thank you guys for keeping the flame of Ghostbusters burning in the inter-movie years, in the lead up to movie moments, and now as the candle flickers just post the release of a Ghostbusters film. It's totally a joy to be here and to talk to you all.
Well, we appreciate that.
We do. Thank you.
It's we've often talked about like thinking back to 2017, 2018, 2019, and we're like, what were we talking about for those 3 years? Like there's definitely like quiet times.
Can I go back and should we do a retrospective, like find a moment dead between every movie and see what you're talking about?
Yeah.
There was like in 2017,
Linda Blair. We talked about Linda Blair a lot.
The whole Linda Blair saga.
Child's Play.
By the way, I'm down.
Play.
Let's play.
Gil, like I said, first of all, congratulations on the release of the movie. It's amazing. We love it. The premiere was so much fun. You were so kind, and you came to our party, and
thanks.
What's it like for you immersing yourself like in the fandom and being around like the fans? Because like you've done a lot of stuff, but like Ghostbusters, I don't think a lot of people outside of like our bubble know that Ghostbusters has like this Star Wars level like hardcore fandom. Did you know about it before like jumping in?
I guess I kind of knew, but I first of all, I'll say I've never felt as immersed by anything as I was at your party, and
us too. We're all having panic attacks.
Yeah.
But even there, where there were a lot of people per square inch, the vibe was always positive, and actually I got a feeling for that in the years leading up to the film. And obviously, I think the place where I had the most concentrated early exposure was the New York Comic Con, where we screened Afterlife for the first time, and that was like, all positive. And I have to say that it, like ounce for ounce, it's a really good group of folks. Like I never felt like, because I've been to Comic-Cons lots over the years for lots of different things. Right. And I think I've encountered and been various levels of engagement with lots of groups of film fans. And I've had like just really good interactions with other Ghostbusters fans. And even like the random things, like my daughter really wanted to go to the London Comic-Con because she's a nerd just like me, and and I just happened to have like my flight suit, and so I put it on kind of as a joke. This was like way like I remember that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like it was a really I don't know, it was so cool. It was like a beacon for other Ghostbusters who are around, and not everyone, like I would say probably most of the people I ran into didn't know who I was, but it was just really nice to be like, oh, Ghostbusters folks who see other Ghostbusters like send out really positive energy, and it was
great camaraderie.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that kind of reminds me. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, it just reminds me of that's how we met. Abby and I, we met Jacob at a convention because he was wearing Ghostbusters stuff. Of course, we've told the story where we saw him standing by himself, and I was like, "Oh, that guy looks like a fuking asshole."
It's like he's cooler than us.
Yeah, but
there
then we were like,
a reason that he.
And then they met me, and I won.
Yeah. But then, like, we talked, and like the next day, I was like, "We got to start a podcast. People will want to hear us talk about this."
And you were right. We did, and we do.
It worked out.
Well, we thank you for that support. Yeah, I remember when you like those pictures came out when you were at the Comic-Con and people were. It's funny. I think the first reaction were like, "How did he get that patch made?" I'm like, "How do you think he got that patch made? He's directing the movie. Come on, guys." What's it like knowing every Ghostbusters fan you've ever encountered? Though they would never say this, hopefully. They all have an idea of where to go next, and they really want to pitch you their story.
They all don't worry, they all do pitch. I'm assuming that this conversation is just the three of you pitching.
We're building our pitch.
The next few
we secured representation right before we started, and so
is that why I had to sign something right at the start of this interview?
Uh-huh.
Yes,
I really should have read that. Fuck.
It's fine. There's like a couple like line items you're just going to want to skip over, but it's all good. So I just talking about Frozen Empire, like we were so immersed in like Afterlife and the build up to that and like the delays and just like the anticipation. And then when it finally came out, like as fans who have literally tracked every piece of like Ghostbusters potential movie news for literally our whole lives. It sounds sad when I say it like out loud, but like Gil, I've told this story so many times on the podcast. We got AOL in 1997, and the first thing I did was, "Is Ghostbusters 3 happening?" It's like the first thing I ever searched on the internet.
Yeah, and the first thing that popped up was Dan Aykroyd saying, yes.
It's been happening.
Get that popcorn ready.
Yeah.
In 23 years, there will be an announcement that's going to rock your socks.
Yeah. So we were waiting a long time. But then it was so surreal for us when the announcement for Firehouse happened and then the announcement that you were going to direct it. Like, just take us back. Like, at what point did you and Jason start thinking about where the story would go next? Like, I imagine that would happen pretty early on, even into the Afterlife development.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of happened as the cut of Afterlife was starting to come into focus. So it was like, first of all, that whole period from Afterlife or Rust City and the days when we were still building it and writing it and making it into the sort of run up for that film. It was kind of first of all, just taking one step back in my career, which started, back in like 2003. So I've been doing this a long time, but I don't make that many movies. Like I try to make movies all the time, but I can only get historically, I've only been able to get so many movies made. And obviously I'm writing and trying to tell stories all the time. I give that as a backdrop for that. There was like an insane confluence of two movies happening for me at the exact same moment. So Afterlife was getting shot at the same time that I was starting to make this movie, A Boy Called Christmas, over in Europe. And so it was like that movie was wrapping up as Afterlife was wrapping up, and Jason and I were both basically in post kind of at the same time. And then there was a moment where both of us were kind of finished with those films because of the pandemic. I was wrapping up the effects on that film. Afterlife was wrapping up, and Jason and I, we've been writing together now for a while, and it was a kind of inevitable, organic process. Like it was never something that happened as a sort of studio mandate or anything. It was just our excitement for the characters, in a sense that we knew when we were finishing up the story for Afterlife that the family was gonna end up in New York. And actually that comic book cover, the issue 1 that just came out, which has like the gas station and Ecto under a tarp, that was going to be a closing shot in Afterlife in an early draft. Like that image was ripped from an idea that we had just at the, like, as we were we were writing Afterlife, the idea that we knew that the story continued, and where it took us was back to New York City and to the beating heart of Ghostbusters, but now we can have this fresh blood in it. So I guess we started having like serious conversations in the summer before Afterlife came out. So I guess summer of 21. And and we started to really like fully build the story out. We had already sort of we had already kind of planted a flag that we were going to be doing it, but that was when we really started to do the heavy lifting of building that story out. And then by the time that Afterlife was coming out, we had a pretty good sense of what shape that story would take. We still had a lot of writing ahead of us, but that was kind of the moment when we were able to sit down with Ivan and pitch him the broad strokes of what that movie would be.
That's amazing. That's so awesome. Yeah, I heard you in I think another interview kind of talk about you and Jason kind of sitting down with Ivan and kind of mapping that out. And like, that's so like, I've thought about it a lot, and it's really sad, but it's also like this really interesting thing that happened with Ivan, where with Afterlife, when, you know, touring the world, and we were at the New York Comic-Con screening, like that was like a concert. Like I'd never been at.
I think about that concert. There's a few concerts. There's a few experiences with Ghostbusters that I think about a lot. And that screening was super meaningful. I was sitting next to Jason, who was sitting next to Ivan, and there was just so much love in that room. And I remember so fondly the moments after the screening where it was just like, okay, this is the feeling that began in that room was a living feeling. And it was unlike anything. You're totally right. Like, it was much closer to a concert than to a film event. And we sort of had that experience a few times around the world screening the film. And it was so special. I mean, also just the experience of bringing the OGs back at the end of that film, and you know, you only get to experience that for the first time once as an audience. And so it was so cool to be able to get a front row seat to that experience around the world.
We literally
had we were in the front row.
We were in the front row. And also
like both, right? Also for Frozen Empire.
That's like our
we prefer it at this point.
To see a Ghostbusters movie for the first time requires a flight and a front row ticket. But also I do remember, no lie, the second time I saw Afterlife, like I was like, oh, I must have legitimately kind of blacked out the last 20 minutes, because I don't really like, it was like seeing it again for the first time. Like all this dialogue.
But the second time wasn't any better, because the second time was the premiere.
Oh, right.
So it was
still
like
in the front row.
The second time you're still in the front row, and Bill Murray sitting behind you. So even more, you know,
out of body.
Definitely, like for us, those are moments that will like live with us forever, because like we've talked about this a lot on the pod, but like these are like our heroes. But like, you don't normally, like, if your hero is, I don't know, name a football player, not O.J. Simpson, another one.
Like, that's literally the only one I knew.
That's the only one I've ever done. Okay, that one is mine, Craig.
All right, imagine, I don't know, for us to be able to sit in a room with these guys who literally, like, it would be like if you grew up watching Sesame Street, which we all did, but like, and then going to a premiere and being with the characters, like, it's just a very out of body kind of experience.
So, that reminds me, I can speak very personally to that exact experience, because the first true terror I felt was a live Sesame Street performance. At some point in the 80s, there was a touring Sesame Street show, and part of the conceit was that they were all sort of detached from the from the sort of props that they were normally puppeteered behind.
Okay.
And it was like a horrifying, at least in my mind, it was like an AI experience, like when you watch a trailer and it's like, welcome to the world of Sesame Street. No puppeteer. We are all alive. And I remember a moment of them coming down the central aisle and having a full-on panic attack, freak out.
That's what happened when Bill walked by. We had a panic.
Is that kind of what you had in mind with your analogy? Because
literally the exact same. Like I was like, I can't believe they're actually real people. Okay, so as you guys were like crafting this movie, like I want to get this out of the way. The OGs are back. I wasn't expecting them to be back. Like I actually kind of thought like Afterlife, this was amazing. They're back. This was their last time and then they'll move forward. And it's not just that they're back, but they're so integral to the story that you told. And then Jacob, we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. Like Dan Aykroyd is one of my favorite people in the world. And he's one of my favorite actors. And like, I can revisit, Great Outdoors or Blues Brothers or Ghostbusters anytime in my life. And it just brings me so much positivity. He's so good in this movie. Like, Thanks, you know, like, how did you, as a director, Dan hasn't done a lot of acting the last decade. Like, did it take him a while to kind of rev up? Because there's scenes in Frozen Empire where it's like, man, he's cooking right now. And I'm loving it.
I'm really proud of Dan's performance in this film. I mean, first of all, he really brought it. I could tell right when we started to work through our scenes that there was a glimmer in his eyes that he was going to go for it. And that we could point this thing in a direction where Ray was really going to bring a dimensional presence to this story. And that was so thrilling for me. And in our earliest conversations, I mean, he's obviously a very special dude. He's a genius and he's a creative meteorite. And he also is like super generous as an actor. And I didn't know that until we started working together, but he very, very early on in and I've known Dan as a co-writer of Ghostbusters now for years, and as somebody who's had a seat at the table creatively in Ghostbusters for years, and I've always found his love of this world of stories and of the keeping the fire burning, all of that is legend, and that was my relationship with him, or my experience with him. But I had a conversation with him very early on in this film where he basically said he was like entrusting, this dynamic, he was like, you can point me where you want me to go. Like, I'm ready to make this character work for the film that you're putting together. And it was like the kind of generosity I didn't expect from someone who literally gave birth to the entire concept of Ghostbusters, who could have showed up and just been like, everyone out of my way, I'm Mr. Ghostbusters. And
I invented this.
It was the exact opposite. It was somebody who showed up with like great generosity of spirit and was like ready to roll up his sleeves and work. And work as an actor first, and it happened early on in the filming dynamic, and it was like I could feel that something was coming to life. And the scene where I really knew that it was like clicking was the scene where he's coaxing a performance out of Nadim, the character that Kumail played.
Light the candle.
The scene. Yeah, the light the candle scene. And that was the one where it was like we were sitting there in the firehouse set. It was a big room, but it was an intimate scene. and I was right there sitting like inches from the camera, which is where I like to sit in scenes like that. And I could just feel the energy and coming off of him in the room, the dynamic, the chemistry between him and Logan, between him and Kumail. It all started to feel like, all right, yeah, we're getting a Dan Aykroyd performance. And so I'm glad you brought it up. It's one of the elements of the film I'm most proud of.
Well, there's subtleties to his more dramatic acting, and like even like My Girl is a movie that we watched a lot as a kid, as traumatic as the end of that movie is. But like he there's like a warmness.
He puts his heart into it. And as we've all referred to him, like for a long time, as the heart of the Ghostbusters. And as you were saying, Gil, like having the lifeblood in the firehouse and having that beating going, like that's Dan Aykroyd. And the fact that he was able to shine like he did in this movie and that you brought that performance out is like incredible.
And then Jake, the scene, we've talked so much about this scene with Winston and Ray, the hallway argument.
Shut up.
I mean, Jake, we get on the phone every night and go, let's break that. Like we do it like we're watching tape, sports? Like another sports reference.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, because it makes you feel, like, first of all, them fighting just feels like something out of Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah.
And, it's just like the golden years thing. And, this is what I want my golden years to be. It's just all, having like an emotional, like Ghostbusters 1 and 2 are great. We love them. They're perfect. There's not a whole lot of like emotional stuff happening in those movies.
Wow. Okay.
Well, come on. You know what I mean.
A single mother isn't important to
I'm not crying.
A baby out on a ledge isn't going to upset you.
When I cry at the end of Ghostbusters 2, it's not, because of...
It's because you're mourning your childhood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like, I don't know, man, having that like argument, and it's like, I don't know, I'm 40 years old and watching Ray and Winston have an argument, and it literally, like, a problem with a lot of sequels is that when you have an actor go into a character, sometimes they don't remember how to play that character, or there's just so much time has passed that maybe it doesn't feel like the same character, and
they can't find it. Yeah,
you do not get that with these guys at all. And like Ray, it is awesome. Perfect. Yeah.
He's really challenged. I mean, look, it's like, you do have to remember, and I approached every day working with these guys with like incredible respect, because nobody knows these characters more than they do. So Jason and I work really hard to write dialogue for them that feels like their character would have said those words. But ultimately, you look up on set and you realize that these are people who have had a relationship with these characters for like almost the amount of time that Jason and I have been alive. And you do have to remember that like there is something, I don't know, there is something unspoken. Like, if you do find a way to write something that is in the voice or in the spirit, or at least points in the direction of where these characters are coming from, there is no greater authority in the world than these people who have been giving voice to the characters for so long. And I mean, I'm just thinking about like Annie Potts and her ability to just conjure Janine in a way that's so, it just always feels like a magic trick. Like there's just, she's just able to find that note every time. And you do sit back sometimes on set and just feel so grateful that you get to work with these musicians who know how to play their instruments perfectly.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Can we switch to music metaphors now? Or are we done with sports for the...
We can be done with sports.
I've been done with sports for a long time. Music's better.
Thank you so much.
We can do music. Well, Jason would often compare the Ghostbusters to the Beatles.
Right.
He'd say when they walk in the room, it's like the Beatles were walking in, and I'm like, yeah, but better, like even better.
Yeah. Let's see the Beatles catch ghosts. Bunch of nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see him try. Hey everybody, Craig here. Look, before we get started, you know me, I'm a collector. I collect toys, action figures, movies, experiences, and now coffee. How am I collecting coffee? With Pop Culture Coffee, exclusively available at popculturecoffee.com. These guys are incredible. They have an amazing product with limited edition bags of coffee featuring some of your favorite brands, including Star Trek and, of course, Ghostbusters. Limited releases. They got the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire coffee with puffed mellow. They got the Death Chill coming in the can, Ecto Espresso. You can order it right now. It's got Slimer right there on the can. Chocolate caramel cold brew. Ooh, does that sound good? And listen, as a podcaster, I got to keep that energy up. I got to keep alert. I got to stay awake. I got to edit. I got to buy toys. I need that caffeine, and I'm doing it with Pop Culture Coffee. Really cool brand. I'm very excited about it. I'm super stoked to be partnering with them, and you can go to popculturecoffee.com right now and get 15% off your entire order using discount code YesHaveSome15. Just think, you go to the website, you put in the code, a couple days later, you're drinking the Death Chill. So one thing that was, I think you took some big swings in this movie. You know, we got to visit the set, which was unbelievable for us. Like, again, it's like Willy Wonka golden ticket territory. And, you know, we got to see some of the plot early, and we, you know, Eric and Jason kind of like walked us through like the Nadim plot, and we were like, wait, what? Like, that is like right away we're like, this sounds like, we don't want to be those people, but this sounds like something out of real Ghostbusters, you know, like this sounds, but it's so good. And Kumail is so great. And Lars, you know, James A. Caster, like the characters that you added to an already like stacked cast, like, I don't know. It's just so, just so great. Well, like, what was the approach like writing the new character?
Yeah. On the Nadim thing, I mean, like the conversation with Kumail started really early. Jason and I were both fans of Kumail, and we started to think of the Nadim character as a way to bring some life to this idea of generational responsibility. And it was almost like a refraction of the responsibility that Phoebe feels but is frustrated from engaging with. The thing that she learned in the fields of Somerville, and of course that was always a way of bringing some narrative drama to Jason's own relationship with Ghostbusters. And that was a sort of central thematic driver of our approach to Afterlife from the beginning. So it was already kind of in the water, this idea that there is something that you get from the whatever the environment is that you're raised with, whether it's nature or nurture, you can either choose to embrace or you can run away from, you know, reject and hope for the best. And that we knew that we were continuing to develop or mine that theme very early in these conversations, as early as, you know, our building blocks, without getting too much into how the sausage was made. We knew we were dealing with the concept of haunted objects very early on. It was obviously the firehouse was our first central tenant for this film. The environment was always going to be kind of an emotional and narrative playground for this film. And that was literally like the very first foundational conversation we had. Then we started to build up, as we do, like these themes of the moment where you stop running from your destiny and you take it on. And if you choose to fully embrace it, then you have a chance to save the world. That felt like it was a way for us to start to bring this other idea that we were excited about, which is, okay, sure, we've learned about Ghostbusters that started in 1984 as a way of managing the supernatural, the supernatural escalation that was going on at that moment in time in that place in the universe, or in the world. But if you believe, like Ray and we do, that we live with spirits as part of our mortal existence, then you have to accept that the Ghostbusters weren't the first group to come together to try to deal with a supernatural threat, and probably not even the first ones to have a logo, and so I think that then you can just kind of extrapolate a line way back to the Harappan civilization and to the Deem's ancestors, and that always felt like a really thrilling thread. Whether it was set up in any way in any Ghostbusters story that had ever come before it or not, it felt like an organic outcropping of the kind of storytelling that both of us wanted to see or be experience in a Ghostbusters film. So that was kind of the stew that started to allow things like, Nadim's Fire Master, ...
Yeah. Well, and also it's an opportunity to I think sometimes people think of storytelling so linear. I should have tried it.
Linearly? Linearly?
Let's go back to football. It feels
Let me try words I know. Vegan. That one was easy. Oscar is another one. But it expands the lore, right? And you can take it back and it introduces this concept of the Fire Masters, and you were just saying, there has probably been groups tackling this paranormal threat in different parts of the world for centuries, in different cultures,
different kinds of ghost traps, different kinds of ghosts. Exactly. It's such a playful thing to be in. I agree.
Yeah. Gil, how aware there's no way you're keeping tabs on the fan theory world of message.
Oh no, I actually am not. I'm very curious. Will you give me top three theories? Top two. Give me one. Give me one.
Here's one. So this was kind of an interesting one. I don't think it's really even a fan theory, but people were saying you could retroactively explain Vigo being trapped in the painting, because there's this the scene in Ghostbusters 2 where Ray explains what happened to Vigo, right? Basically everybody, there was an uprising against him, and they tore him apart. There was parallels to the Graka story of how he's killed. And the whole story that you told in this movie about paranormal entities being tied to objects, it's just kind of interesting. I won't regale you with any of the other madness going on in the film.
I was kind of hoping for pregnant Sonic the Hedgehog level fan fiction, but
hey,
there is
fan fiction.
There's the fan fiction.
Pregnant Garaka fan fiction.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Wait,
yes.
what? Yeah. Garaka and anybody, really, if you think about it.
Hot. So hot.
Yeah. It's cold, really. So yeah, I loved Nadim, and like I said, I loved Lars, and I think we have to touch on the Phoebe Melody storyline, because it was just it's just so cool and so well executed, and I think people, because Melody's character was hidden from all promotional, marketing, I don't think people knew what to expect. Can you walk us through a little bit of the process of developing that story?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I'll say that it was really cool knowing that there was this entire component of the film that audiences were only going to experience if they went to see the film. And a lot of that was pragmatic, because I don't know how to say this without it being again, how the sausage is made, but like
Sure.
the movie had a very tight schedule, like from start to finish. And specifically the post schedule was like wildly tight. And I'm really proud of the amount of character and world building that our VFX teams were able to accomplish.
Yeah.
But like Melody was like really, I was nailing down the look of Melody, you know, months before the film was released. And so it was just like, it was absolutely a character that was coming into focus as a spectral form as the finish line was hurtling towards us. But every time you put out a trailer or something and, you know, you hear comments about like, there they go, showing every single thing in the movie. And it's kind of nice to know. It's like, oh, you actually haven't seen like this actually really central storyline and an important character and a new concept in a Ghostbusters film, which is a ghost with her own voice and her own arc. Obviously, in Afterlife, Egon had an incredible emotional arc with Phoebe, but Egon wasn't on screen except for a few moments at the end of that film, and obviously didn't have a voice, didn't need one. It was a you know, a moment where something was being transferred, emotional energy, etc. But with Melody, right from the beginning, Jason and I in the writing phase knew that for Phoebe there was a sensitivity or an openness to the other side that began in Somerville in Oklahoma that was too interesting of an element of her character for us not to develop in the next chapter of her story. And it was, there were a few things that right from the beginning, Melody sort of gave us the opportunity to do. The main one was for Phoebe as a Ghostbuster who is struggling with her place both within her family and within Ghostbusters as an enterprise, to find the kind of, you know, to have the irony of her finding somebody who gets her, who listens to her, who she can find some kinship with, who's a ghost, who's basically playing for the other side. And that felt like a kind of natural dramatic area that we wanted to explore. It was also important that this new place, that New York City, be given a character that was of it, and that for Phoebe, who has bounced around as a kid a few times, and again was looking for some sort of mooring, some sort of foundation, and you know, the firehouse is really cool and it's a lot of things, but like it's not a natural home for a family. It was never designed to be one. You know, you can put all the like tea cozies and whatever microwaves and mugs with funny expressions on them that you want, but it's never going to feel like a home. And so all of those things made Phoebe and to varying degrees, Trevor, Callie, Gary, susceptible or open to feeling something that would ground them more in this place. And because we decided with Afterlife that emotionally we were going to hang these stories on Phoebe's journey, it made all the narrative sense in the world that she was going to be the one who would meet Melody. She was going to be the one who would forge this relationship with this ghost. And she was going to be the one who stood to lose the most because of it. And that the stakes became personal and painful and big because of that, you know, because of that personal exposure.
Right.
Yeah, I think that her like openness, like you said, and like nonchalance towards speaking with spectral entities, and like in Afterlife when Egon's like, she's like, yeah, I met my granddad last night. Like that kind of a passiveness is what's so interesting and so like magnetic, I suppose, about her character, about Phoebe. That's something that I gravitate to.
Yeah, it's one of her powers. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's no judgment.
No, Phoebe is. No, totally. There's no judgment. I mean, Phoebe she comes at it from a very different place than Ray, who is like casting a very wide net and actively looking for any signs of non-life in the universe. But for Phoebe, it's just like you said, it's a kind of casual openness to it. And yeah, she's a really special character.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And shout out to McKenna, who's a friggin' genius and communicates in entire volumes of the human existence in like in the batting of a single eyelash.
Yeah, it's all in the lashes.
It is really like I saw it. I had my 4th viewing yesterday in preparation for this.
Thank you.
Event. I was just trying to pay attention to the smaller character moments. You know, the first couple times you watch it, you're just trying to experience it. And then the third time it's like, okay, now I have to go Easter egg hunting. It's like, okay, now I can finally actually enjoy this as a film and try to get into the motivations. And like, yeah, McKenna, first of all, she's just like, I'm just going to say it. Her and Finn and all of them, Logan, they have no reason to be this nice. Like they're so nice as like people. Like,
you fall for that?
Shouldn't they be? Are they assholes? Tell me.
Monsters. Come on. Literal monsters.
Okay, good. Thank God. I'm like, guys, I grew up in the 90s. I want the behind the music. I want the true Hollywood story. But like, they're just
still
so
healing inside and out from the experience of making a movie.
Yeah, that
bad. Right. I get it. No, but McKenna's just is great, and I think her scenes with Emily are just. They say there's so much being said, without being said, like and
sparkly, magnetic, like that draw that she has to Melody of like I kind of shouldn't be hanging out with you, but like everyone else has left me behind, and like her being a grounded piece to the firehouse. Like I love how all of that works, and her time on screen was the most. I was transfixed. Yeah,
it's so cool that with Emily. There is literally a reincarnation of a silent movie star that exists in our time for me to cast in this movie. Cause like she channels pure like Clara Bow, energy. There is just like something so, I don't know. It's the kind of, being able to put emotion on the screen that really doesn't naturally exist in performers as young as Emily is. And it was so clear. I had this weird reference that I'd been kind of hoarding for a while, this movie that I really loved, and I didn't really know if there would ever be an application for it, but it was something that just always felt like it was this kind of melodramatic film, French ghost movie from the 40s that I really loved. And I took a risk by like showing this movie to Emily after I cast her in the role. And it was like such a cool moment of like watching how much it clicked with her, like that she instantly saw both the connective tissue between the way that movie handled ghost human relationships and movement and all that stuff. It was all really it was cool. I feel really lucky to have been able to tell this story with all of them.
Yeah, I'd love the name of that movie whenever.
Oh yeah. So, well, it's a French title, so it's Sylvie and Sylvie et la Fantôme. So Sylvie and the Ghost. It's on YouTube, and it's interesting. Cool. It's Jacques Tati's first on-screen performance. He plays the ghost. He didn't write or direct it, but he can I pitch the movie? It's such a good story.
Yeah, do it.
Can I eat up Yes Have Some time with another movie?
Yeah, please do. Yes.
So,
it's yours.
So it's an old chateau, and there is a portrait, an old oil painting of a guy who died like let's say 150 years ago. And he died fighting a duel over the woman that he loved. So his painting hangs in this house, and it's a painting of like this dude and his hound. And he every night he like steps out of this painting, Vigo, the Carpathian vibes, and goes like traipsing around this house, knows where every step is, goes up and down through floors. And one summer, he's shocked to see the woman that he loved, that he died for, just hanging around in this house, like walking around her. I think the first time he sees her, it's a little like slightly voyeuristic. I think she's sleeping.
Of course.
But it's the 40s. We're going to allow that.
Yeah.
Life is much creepier then. So it's post-war years. They're allowed a few indiscretions. So he sees her and he falls in love with her. And it turns out it's like the great-granddaughter of the woman that he loved. And so it's this tragic, like he's always an arm's length away, but he feels closer than ever to the reason that he died. Anyway, it's funny, it's weird, it's goofy, it has the best music. It's still my like ringtone on my phone. And so
I
was
love
like, that was definitely in the background touchstone for this movie.
That's amazing.
And now you guys know
that sounds special. That sounds special that you were able to like share that with Emily. And
I agree. And now I've shared it with the three of you. And
and I'm going to watch it. It reminds me of the premise of a Star Trek The Next Generation episode. But I'm sure they were ripping off that movie is what I'm thinking.
It turns out it literally was just, I'm like totally wrong. There's no 1940s.
It's called Sub Rosa.
You're like,
Beverly Crusher.
Okay, it's this amazing ghost film. It starts in space. And there is a ship, but it's unlike any spaceship you've ever seen. It looks like a frisbee with
this portrait of Lieutenant Worf.
You're like, son. I think it was made in like 1942. It's like post-war. And,
it's how do you say Star Trek?
Yes. Yes. That's awesome.
That was good.
Good banter. I'd give that like a 9 out of 10.
That was a good one.
We like to do our banter ranks. So Gil, if you can give us a few, there's a few more things I want to touch on if we can. If you're okay on time.
I'm a captive audience. The only thing I'll say is the cabin has a finite source of electric light. It's going to get darker and darker.
That's
cool.
Can we come down and like get on one like a bicycle to power it up? Or something? Is that what works over there?
Is that how they do it?
The kerosene.
That's what he needs the armadillos.
Exactly.
Just like we'll just start walking south until we're at the cabin.
Where are you guys all in the city? Like the city proper?
Craig and I are.
Abby and I are near the airport. And
I'm in Valdosta. I'm like 3 hours south. I'm closer to Florida.
Oh yeah, I got it. All right, cool. Hi.
Yeah. That's why we haven't seen the armadillos. We don't have city armadillos.
Yeah.
Oh, because you guys are. When I talked about armadillos, do people who happen to be listening in need to understand any context or no?
No, they don't pay attention to what we say anyway. You know what? They're just going to be mad. We in our Discord server for our Patreon people, we said, hey, we're gonna have Gil on. If there's anything, things you want to touch on, let us know. And it's just it's like they're great people, but these are not questions I'm going to ask you. So,
when we're done, can you just ask me? Like after we hit stop recording.
When we're done, we'll do annoying fan questions, and then we'll communicate to everybody privately. You have to be a part of the Patreon to get the answer. Yeah. Oh, okay. It's a money making scheme. I'm
going to start my own Patreon where I answer them.
Yes. I'll sign up.
Yeah. It's yeah. So okay, I wanted to touch on I just wanted you're a horror guy, right? You're a big horror fan. Yeah. You've talked about it a lot. I did notice this the first time I watched, and I wanted to know if it was an actual homage or just coincidence. There's this Evil Dead-esque camera work when Garaka is getting his mojo going and the freeze is starting to happen. Mm-hmm. And I just love it, and I wanted to tell you that.
Thanks. That's so definitely happy. That's a kiss to Sam Raimi. That's a kiss across the room to Sam Raimi.
So good.
Mm-hmm. It's
like I think we fist bumped. It's
one of those things where when you see it, you just like point and you're like, "Evil Dead!" yeah, we did it.
We love this. I wanted to stand up at the premiere and be like, "I loved that."
Thank you so much. Interesting technical tidbit. Is that Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is the first film in history that was able to fly low altitude cameras through New York City. There's never been anything other than helicopter photography of Manhattan because drones were completely outlawed within the city.
Right.
Whoa. Can you feel the dramatic light flickers?
Yeah.
I'm just going to go with it.
It's because I brought up Evil Dead.
Yeah. I'm literally in a cabin next to a pond. So if I die, this has been fun, guys.
This will be
and there was like this weird book that was bound in human skin. Yeah. There was like, I thought it was a guest book, but I opened it and it started writing on its own in blood. Yeah. Should I be worried?
That would be a cool guest book for your Airbnb. Okay,
but actually, that would be amazing. So all those shots were like the first time you could fly a camera low and fast through the city. So I'm super psyched about it.
That's great. That's a good little tidbit. That camera work is really cool. Mm-hmm. So one thing in like Afterlife, it kind of felt like Afterlife kind of had to go out of its way to kind of reestablish kind of the canon Ghostbusters universe. And part of that was keeping it very grounded and very much like, some people kind of remember what happened in 84 and, 89 happened, but we're not going to talk about it too much. And it actually led to a lot of people in the fandom discussing whether Ghostbusters 2 was canon, just like silly conversations and all that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie, the montage at the beginning with the newsreel, you're like, hey, there's the Statue of Liberty. Also, the Ray Parker music video is now in universe canon, and there's Kenner toy commercials. It was
acceptance.
That was such a cool touch, and I really, really appreciated that.
I loved it.
Thank you. I loved it too. It was like an act of pure joy putting that thing together with Nathan, my editor. Yeah. It was like, I think partly it was an acceptance that the Ghostbusters concept in 1984 was always like one part scientific investigation and one part showmanship, right? I mean, there was always this idea behind it. I mean, the movie acknowledges it in all of its montages, the first film, all of the magazine and newspaper montages, television, and, like you do get a sense that there is a pop culture bump that happens in the film. And it definitely felt, and we, like you said, Afterlife was a much more grounded film. It had to start building from the foundation up. But having built that foundation, it felt like with this movie, we could have sort of picked up right where the 1980s stories left off, which is that this is just part of the fabric of what it's like to live in New York City and at a time of Ghostbusters. And I kind of think part of it too is just like, we don't have to like worry so much about it. Let's just relax about what exactly where every foot goes in terms of what's what's allowed and what's not. And a liberal montage, like the one at the beginning of Frozen Empire, is also kind of like all right, just take a deep breath. It's all good.
Yeah.
Everything you've ever seen or loved is Ghostbusters. It's all allowed. It's cool. It's okay.
That's awesome. There's all these YouTube channels that are they do this thing where they watch, like, people like, oh, I'm watching this movie for the first time, and you watch them watch the movie, and it's not 100% my thing. But one thing we've noticed is that when people watch Ghostbusters 2 for the first time, there's this moment near the end when the Statue of Liberty is walking down the street where everybody has the same reaction where they go, this is the most insane thing I've ever seen. Like, but it works, and it's special, and it's fun. Like, we're the GB2 generation. So for us,
by the way, I mean, Ghostbusters 2 was like a pretty epic theatrical experience for me. The first Ghostbusters was like a major moment because I was I was young, and it was just like, what the fuck? I saw it in a movie theater, and it blew the roof off of my brain. But Ghostbusters 2, I saw on my own. I got dropped off at the movie theater, and it was like an opening night screening of it in the San Fernando Valley. And so when Venkman starts when he starts talking to Vigo and being like, you could have picked anywhere. You could have gone to the beautiful city of San Fernando, whatever, that line that I'm paraphrasing. Like, I was in the audience on opening night when the entire fucking theater erupted in cheers.
That's amazing.
And I remember awesome. I was still a kid, but I remember kind of like looking around and being like, you fools, he's making fun of us. Don't you get it? We're the joke. We're the joke. So Ghostbusters 2 is special for me. Like, that movie, I really love that movie. Obviously. I mean, I also love the goofiness of it, and that was definitely something that I opened my heart to with Frozen Empire.
And like Ghostbusters 2 is famously, they kind of made some modifications and changes because of the popularity of the animated series. And I know Kumail's talked about it, the real Ghostbusters influence on this movie. So besides like I think there's a couple things that are obvious, like in the sense that like having having Garaka being a brand new ghost with like this cultural kind of backstory, like that's very real Ghostbusters.
Janine in a flight suit.
Janine in a flight suit is very real Ghostbusters. Did you?
That's not pee.
Good.
Just thought I needed to say that. I say that every time I drink.
I thought you were more hardcore.
It's actually it's a really normal thing to say when you drink. Just go on, please.
Yeah. Gil, that makes me think that is pee. Yeah. I don't think anybody was questioning you.
I'm not here to tell anybody. I'm not the person who's here to say that there are actually incredibly researched scientific studies that show that drinking your own urine is the only way to achieve perfect health. Don't let me
Gil,
be the voice.
Sound clip. Let's
don't give us vegans a bad name. Don't do that with the
Where do you get your B12 from, man? How do you?
Hey, that would be the real golden years.
Oh yeah, wait for those DVD outtakes.
Yeah, remember those deleted scenes?
Yeah.
There's this really weird scene where Ray's like, come on, Winston.
No, I'm not done yet. Glug, glug. They're like, how much is in that? Enough to save the world.
Yeah.
He's telling
I do
not to throw out all the jars.
One of these days, it wasn't in Afterlife and it wasn't in Frozen Empire. One of these days, we will take full advantage of the flight suit's catheter. I'm not saying that it's going to be the next Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah,
but those movies definitely have a pee hose. They've never been. All right, I've used up the full 60 seconds a P talk for this podcast. We're moving on.
I think there's one interview or something with Dan. I think it was a foreword for a book where he explicitly states that the hose is to pee in, and it was the only time ever that it was acknowledged that that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was a book about the Franco-Prussian War. Nobody saw it coming. Somehow he found a way to bring it right back.
We thought it was weird that he was doing the forward to that book in the first place, but we just kind of went. So
what are we talking about?
So, okay, yes, real Ghostbusters, Garaka.
Oh, there we
go. There's no question that, like, you know, in the same way that I was talking about the first couple of films having a sort of liberal attitude and a kind of welcoming or encompassing attitude to the idea that Ghostbusters have a connection with the modern world as the audience knows it.
Right.
In the real Ghostbusters, we, Jason and I, found a liberality towards the way that a villain can be treated, or an antagonist or a supernatural threat can be treated in these stories. And it was really healthy for us as a way of moving past the Gozer, mythology, or the Vigo mythology, all ones that we've grown up with, that these stories are steeped in, but can't be the only modes of storytelling, the only mythologies that these stories tell. If we're going to have any more Ghostbusters stories, we have to kind of celebrate the diversity of the supernatural world. And so that was really it. It was like we gorged on episodes of Real Ghostbusters. Like Jason has this really cool screening room at his house, and we had a weekend where we sort of did a mini marathon of Real Ghostbusters before we started to write Frozen Empire. And it worked in like shaking the cobwebs out of our approach to the Garaka story, and meant we could just go weird. We can go a little wilder, a little goofier, all in ways that felt like the film could sustain.
That's amazing. Yeah.
You can see that too in like all the different ghosts that are in this movie. I feel like, you got Pukey, the Possessor, the Lion. It just feels like there's such a wider range of the kinds of ghosts that you're seeing. And is all that stuff like, are those kind of things just like happening naturally when you're coming up with a story or writing the script? Or are you ever like, I would imagine, like there are days where I'm just hanging out and I'm like, oh, that would be a weird, creepy ghost. And you just kind of have ideas of like, Craig, don't laugh at me as if
I'm not laughing. I'm thinking,
called me and said, like, I'm
thinking about our conversation.
Be a cool ghost in a Ghostbusters
Yeah, of course.
movie.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm celebrating this, what we do.
I mean,
our creativity.
I think it's kind of both, but in this movie's case, we wrote it with kind of an open, we had a sort of open horizon in terms of how we invoke the supernatural. We knew that by coming, like Afterlife, almost by design or by the way that it had to be constructed, was a film that had a ceiling on the exposure to the supernatural world, because we needed to kind of rebuild this idea that our world has an interplay with the other side. And there are moments in time where those things come bubbling up to the surface. Once our heroes saw all of that, once you survive the third act of Afterlife, it's hard to go back to a world where you wait, an hour and 20 minutes for a ghost to show up in a Ghostbusters story. It was now about coming back into a city that had a vibrant supernatural ecosystem. And so the answer to the question is, we kind of, the truthful answer is it always came out of the writing of the scenes. We had our character story. We knew where each of our characters were going. And that's how Jason and I always write. It doesn't matter what movie it is. We always just start writing a shape of a journey for characters, and then start to build up the sort of themes that we know we want to play with, and the narrative, the plot, whatever around that. So every ghost was always a part of the process of just bringing these scenes and these character moments to life, or testing a character, putting something in front of it that would cause it to have to either go somewhere a character had never gone before, or would challenge them in some specific way. Anyway, that was the process. So, the place where we kind of had the biggest open field in terms of conceptualizing spirits on the page was the Paranormal Research Center. Right? Because this was a lab that needed to have certain entities already in play. We didn't have to creep around a corner and see a chair rocking and throw some streams at it and coax the thing out. We were able to see what happened after that. And so it was just it gave us a bit of a shortcut to seeing more.
It's well worth it when you see Slimer eat a pizza. That's the moment that I'm like, yes, this is all working for me.
I have to say, I was like so nervous about that moment. And I don't know why. It was just like, it's just such a, it's such a like obvious image, but we've never seen that image in a Ghostbusters film before. But like, there are hundreds of people in the world with like full color back tattoos of Slimer eating a pizza. And so
I literally have that on my hand. He's literally holding a piece of pizza.
Perfect. And your tattoo really went up in value after you're welcome. But the resale is going to be insane on that thing.
But we're gonna de-skin your hand. That's gonna be awesome.
Jake's hand in a detox.
Make a guest book out of it. But that moment I was like so nervous about, because it's like there are 100 ways to fuck up a moment when the movie stops in the middle of the third act, when all hell is breaking loose for a ghost named Slimer to eat a pizza. And it was really good. I am also really proud, and I don't think it's like I don't think that we have like a special featurette about that moment, but the moment where Slimer is eating a pizza in the film is 100% puppet Slimer with 100% real living human pizza in its mouth that it's That's eating. Amazing. So
that's so good.
That's incredible.
Particularly excited about that.
Go for it, Jake.
Well, you're just talking about slowing the movie down right there, but that scene that leading up to the Slimer is one of my favorite scenes in the movie, because it's like you turn the firehouse into a haunted house. You have like the possessor going all over the place, and the Christine moment happening with the car, and it literally is like they're in a haunted house right now, which is
totally
so fucking
it's great. It's great.
Just
really,
that
made me so happy. I did love feeling like you could do that moment where you take the home of the Ghostbusters and start to turn it against them. That felt cool.
When that sequence is, to me, it's the best like 1, 2, 3 laugh punch of the movie, which is Finn, when Finn says you're doing it to the it's the funniest. It rules.
That's our favorite line.
It rules. And then the Slimer pizza thing, and then the cut to Nadim where I think he says, "I am a god." Like, it's just the funniest.
And then it goes, and then Slimer, and then Finn goes, I know that guy. And that always, that moment always works. I think we have to take a moment to appreciate Finn Wolfhard.
He's amazing.
He is an unbelievable comic performer, and
very funny.
I'm like, I can't wait till we can have a lot more Trevor in one of these stories, because I fucking love that character, and Finn's the greatest.
Oh, that's a fan theory. I think I came up with it. It's really gross. Somebody after the movie was like, when Trevor,
is this about pregnant Trevor? Where's this going?
He's pregnant. No, the first time when he puts his finger up and the slime's coming through, there are people theorizing. They're like, oh, his finger was up Slimer's ass right there. You know that for a fact. Right?
That's how they thought he was positioned over the opening.
What is the other theory? How is there another read of that moment?
So it's not a confirmed.
It's literally the only read of that moment.
Oh my God.
It's the only.
So Slimer's installed an ecto.
You can still see his lips moving, but you can, if you look carefully, saying, "My finger is in a ghost's ass." And I had to dub. Yeah, we would have lost our rating.
Sony was like, nope.
You cut to Slimer's face.
That was the only note I got from Sony. It was like,
the fans have been asking for Slimer. So.
You guys wanted him.
Or is the beloved Finn Wolfhard saying, "My finger is in a ghost's ass right now"?
Yeah.
And I had to concede that point.
Yeah. Well, and that sucks that you have to really go.
I know. This is why you roll the dice when you make a studio film. It's one for them, one for us.
Okay, we're gonna let you get out of here. I think I need to ask like two more things. Abby, Jacob, do you have anything pressing before I go down?
No, I'm happy.
No, go for it.
We've covered a lot of good stuff.
Well, I think we would get murdered by our audience if we didn't at least ask. Two kind of a two-parter. First, I think it's really important for these stories going forward to really focus on the new characters and the expanding lore. I think that we've seen so much progress for this franchise, and we're at a point now where we've got all these incredible new characters, and to still see Bill and Annie and Dan and Ernie and William Atherton, who also was like really great, like unbelievably good. And I guess my question is there a way, have you guys thought about telling stories, whether through movie or comic or animation, that kind of fills in some of the gaps of, 1989 to 2020, while being able to also progress forward? Or is it even important to fill in those gaps?
Can I just say yes?
Perfect.
Yes.
Good. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Okay.
This will be my shortest answer.
Yeah, there's more stories to tell.
Hey, for Craig's longest question.
Heard that.
I wanted to word it in a respectful way. I don't want to say... I don't want to.
Any more of them?
yeah, right, exactly.
I'm going monosyllabic with all cool. Future answers.
Cool.
Okay, yeah. So, and that kind of addresses, So, it feels like you were just talking about making a studio film. It's really hard. You got to make concessions, and it's this legacy franchise, and like people care about it more than their own families. That's really hard. It feels like making a movie about SNL's first episode of 1975 is also like really, really hard. Like, can you talk a little bit about your excitement, anticipation, work on the SNL?
Yeah. So sorry, sorry for cutting you off.
You're good.
That's how excited I am. It's honestly like one of the most thrilling experiences I've had is the watching this next film come together, because of the way it's being put together is just a way we haven't made a movie before, neither of us. And Jason's creating something really special. I don't want to go into process too much, but
sure.
It's all, even like, every part of it was unorthodox for us. We wrote it in a way that we'd never written before. It was like months of research with people who are still alive, whose stories shape the events of what we're working on. And the fidelity of the world building, which is a real place, but a place that, existed 50 years ago. The actual, the texture of the place, the way that that the world feels so complete is a pretty unique experience to be a part of. So, yeah, it's really cool. And it's like, I can't wait for you guys to see it as it starts to come together.
It's kind of, it runs parallel to this crazy world. So it's just awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are obviously a lot of overlaps, and
but just get ready.
Dan Aykroyd is the center of the universe, is center of both universes.
I know.
Dude, no surprise. Yeah.
You guys get ready when you guys start doing the press for it. It's going to get annoying because on day one, 10 people are going to say, "Oh, why isn't Bill Murray? Where's Bill Murray?" They're going to do. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Oh, should we just put him in it? Would that just make things a lot easier?
Just put him in.
About,
rewrite,
but just Bill Murray, not an actor as Bill. Just let him be Bill.
I think the post-credit scene should just be Chevy Chase and Bill Murray having a giant fist fight. While the credits are rolling, like a really long, exaggerated version of the famous fight that happened. Gil, we can't thank you enough for stopping by. We appreciate it. We're so grateful for your time and really, we love Ghostbusters, and you got to watch Ghostbusters 2 in the San Fernando Valley, and then 30 some odd years later you got to direct it. I mean, that's pretty cool.
I know. What is life? That's
we don't know.
Crazy.
It is crazy.
I'm really grateful. I said it earnestly at the beginning, but I'll end with it earnestly too, that you guys have been like a really important part of the community of Ghostbusters, and you were my barometer of the world that we were releasing this film into, both films into, and that it always felt so positive and authentic. So I'm really psyched that we could have this conversation, and grateful for the work that all three of you do.
Oh, well, we appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, everybody. I don't need to tell you this. Go see Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and then
not pee.
And then don't drink pee, or do. We still haven't gotten to the bottom of it.
If there's one thing you take away from this film, it's either do or do not drink pee.
We've got a pretty dedicated listenership. There's probably a 2% that if we said you should go drink your pee, they would be like,
do it. Yeah.
They would DM me, Craig. I did it
while watching.
Yeah. Do you need the video?
It wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I liked it. I had a great time. All right.
There's your ecto cooler.
Do I? Yes, have some. Yes, have some.